Gentlemen, and I use that word deliberately, listen to me carefully. One of the most confounding experiences a man may face in an intimate relationship is this: she pulls away. And perhaps even more perplexing is the reality that she can do so while still loving you, fiercely, even deeply. Now, let's not begin by blaming her. That's too simple. That's the domain of resentment, and it's a dangerous place to live. Instead, let's ask why. Why would a woman who genuinely loves you, who once opened her soul to you, suddenly become distant, emotionally colder, less present? You cannot confuse love with possession, because the moment you do, you're no longer loving. You're consuming. A woman is not your salvation, and she is not your shadow. She is not your crutch, nor your cure. She is a sovereign being with thoughts that clash and converge in spirals of complexity that you may never fully understand. To truly love her, you must be willing to stand beside her without the desire to stand over her. Her heart does not exist to fill the void in yours. And if she feels her identity dissolving in the wake of your needs, she will retreat, because that retreat is a reclamation. Her silence is not coldness, it is a boundary. Her distance is not cruelty, it is clarity. You may believe you're offering love, but if that love suffocates her inner world, it is no longer love, it is fear wearing a mask. She will pull away when the cost of intimacy begins to threaten her individuality. She will disappear in plain sight if your presence starts to crowd out her voice. And that disappearance is not betrayal, it is an act of survival. You cannot claim to love her while eroding the foundation upon which she stands. She has her own dreams, her own doubts, her own disordered chaos she's learning to order, and she's not obligated to let you dismantle it just because you're afraid of being alone. A man who cannot stand independently will lean too heavily on the woman he loves, and she will feel that weight as pressure, not protection. She pulls away because somewhere deep within her, she senses that her freedom is becoming the cost of your comfort. And she cannot afford that transaction. Not if she's truly awake. Not if she respects herself. When she senses her identity is being slowly replaced by your insecurities, she does not fight. You won't even see the war. She simply fades, quietly, deliberately. A woman who loves you deeply might still choose herself, because she has learned that love does not mean self-erasure. And if your love demands she becomes small so that you can feel big, then what you offer is not love. It is domination dressed in dependency. You must understand that her need to be alone is not a rejection, it is a rebalancing. And if you panic in that space, if you chase her with frantic desperation, you are proving her instinct correct. She is not an extension of your ego. She is not your emotional support system in human form. She is a force, complex, fluid, fierce, and she is under no obligation to dilute that force so that you can feel safe. If she pulls away, it may be because you have failed to uphold your own inner structure, and she cannot build her home inside a collapsing man. She needs to know that your love is not a leash. She needs to know that your presence won't devour her personhood. You think closeness means sharing everything, but she needs space as much as she needs affection. She needs solitude to remain sane. She needs boundaries to remain whole. She needs the freedom to breathe without asking for permission. You cannot drown her with your emotional needs and call it intimacy. You cannot fear her independence and call it loyalty. You cannot smother her and still expect her to bloom. The feminine is not here to rescue the broken masculine. It is here to challenge him into becoming whole. And when she pulls away, she may be testing whether your stability is real or just another illusion. She doesn't want to be worshipped, she wants to be witnessed. She doesn't want to be clung to, she wants to be chosen. Consciously, without desperation. She is not an escape from your pain. She is not a replacement for your mother. You must bring to her a self that is capable of standing alone, because only then can you truly walk beside her. If you make her responsible for your emotional weather, She will feel like she is walking barefoot through a minefield. And no amount of "I love you" will change the fact that you've made her feel unsafe in her own skin. She will withdraw when she starts to feel more like a caretaker than a companion. She will pull back when your emotional dependence begins to feel like emotional colonization. She is not pulling away to punish you. She is pulling away to preserve the last parts of herself that remain untouched by your unconscious need. A woman with depth will not sacrifice her soul just to keep the relationship afloat. She would rather be alone with her truth than together in a lie. And if you're intimidated by that, good. That means there's work to do. She is not asking you to fix her, to lead her, or to rescue her. She is asking you to see her as a full being, not a vessel for your healing. You must be strong enough to let her walk away without collapsing into your own wounds. You must be disciplined enough to recognize that her autonomy is not a threat, but an invitation for you to grow. She is not a puzzle you're meant to solve. She's a mystery you're meant to respect. When she walks into the forest of her own solitude, don't chase her. Honor her courage. If she feels unsafe to unfold in front of you, she will contract. If she feels pressured to be your emotional mirror, she will go blind to her own reflection. You cannot love her fully if you fear her freedom. You cannot keep her close if you cannot keep yourself grounded. The closer she feels to losing herself in the relationship, the faster she'll retreat. And once she pulls away, if you respond with guilt-tripping, begging, or accusations, you prove her instincts were painfully accurate. She does not want to teach you how to hold her. She wants to feel that you already can. She does not want to carry your unmet needs. She wants to meet you in wholeness, not deficiency. If you need her to break just so you can feel whole, you're not loving her. You're consuming her. She is not here to validate your existence. She is here to challenge it into becoming more. If she pulls away, look inward, not outward, because her retreat is often a mirror, not a mystery. And that mirror is brutal. It will show you where you've been a boy expecting a woman to mother him, but it can also show you what it means to become a man worthy of standing beside her. She will not shrink to fit the cage of your comfort. She will not abandon her inner life just to soothe your outer insecurities. She is not a possession to be tamed. She is a soul to be respected. If you love her, you must love all of her, even the parts that don't include you. And if that terrifies you, then what you feel isn't love, it's fear. And no woman can bloom in the soil of fear. But in the presence of strength, self-possession, and reverence, she might not only stay, she might rise. Absolutely. Below is a 1,000-word expansion of Keynote 2. Emotional withdrawal can be a signal of unmet psychological needs, not a lack of love. Written with maximum emotional impact, intellectual precision, and relentless psychological depth in the style of Dr. Jordan Peterson. No subheadings, no repeated lines, every sentence deliberately sharp and transformative. When a woman withdraws, it is almost never random. It is language in disguise. She does not simply vanish because she has stopped loving you. She vanishes because love alone is not enough to sustain her soul. What she needs is not endless affection, but attunement, real, visceral, psychological attunement. You cannot dismiss her silence as moodiness. Her silence is data, and it is speaking volumes about what you've refused to understand. She doesn't pull away because she wants someone else. She pulls away because you stopped being someone she could trust to feel her truth. When she senses you no longer see her internal life as sacred, she doesn't explode, she retracts. Withdrawal is not betrayal. It is the last remaining tool she has to protect what's left of her inner world. She has tried to tell you in gentle sighs, in the slowness of her replies, in the absence of her sparkle, you just didn't listen. And now she pulls away because she has exhausted every form of communication that doesn't involve screaming. But she doesn't want to scream. She wants to be heard before she has to. She wants to be held without having to fall apart to get your attention. She wants her fatigue to be felt without turning it into drama. When she detaches, it's not a power play, it's a preservation mechanism triggered by unmet emotional equilibrium. And if you think love should be enough to keep her close, you've misunderstood the complexity of the feminine. Love is not a force field that protects against emotional starvation. It merely gives context to the hunger. She needs psychological intimacy as much as physical presence. She needs your presence to be mindful, not mechanical. When she speaks, she wants to feel that her words alter your direction, not just bounce off your habits. She pulls away when she feels invisible while being looked at. She pulls away when her emotional labor becomes background noise to your ambition. She pulls away when the relationship becomes a place where her needs are treated as interruptions. You do not get to ignore her subtle cries and then call her cold when she stops offering them. She is not distancing herself to hurt you. She's distancing herself to stop hurting. And her pain is not new. It's layered, built in fragments over time. Every unmet need, a brick in the wall she now hides behind. You can't claim to love someone and be indifferent to the erosion of their spirit in your presence. If she has to repeat herself to be acknowledged, she will eventually choose silence over humiliation. If every time she expresses her truth you become defensive, she will choose detachment over chaos. If her vulnerability becomes ammunition in future arguments, she will armor herself with withdrawal. And you will be confused because you mistook her emotional endurance for infinite patience. But she is not infinitely patient. She is simply hoping you'll notice before she breaks. Her distance is not emotional laziness. It's a calculated response to emotional neglect. She pulls away because every conversation feels like a battlefield where she must fight to be understood. She is not pulling away because she doesn't care. She is pulling away because caring has become a one-sided task. And when she finally stops trying, it won't be loud. It will be terrifyingly quiet. She'll still ask how your day was, but not because she's interested, because she's polite. She'll still smile at your jokes, but the light behind the laughter will have dimmed. You'll feel the distance in the way she hugs you, not because her arms aren't there, but because her soul isn't. You'll touch her body and realize you can't find her anymore, because what she needed wasn't touch, it was tenderness. She doesn't want you to fix her. She wants you to witness her without judgment. She's not asking for solutions. She's asking for sincerity. She's not craving gifts. She's craving gravity, the kind that pulls you into her world without her having to beg for your weight. She pulls away because her emotional needs became inconvenient in your schedule of self-interest. She pulls away because her sensitivity was turned into a liability instead of a strength. She pulls away because your love spoke louder in public than it did in private. She needed a partner who was present in the silence, not just loud in celebration. She needed a listener who made her feel safe, unraveling, not someone who made her feel dramatic. You can't tell her you love her and then flinch when her wounds begin to show. You can't ask her to be open and then weaponize what she reveals. She's been retreating in increments long before you noticed the final collapse. She's been fading like the last note of a sad song, slowly, painfully, beautifully. And the irony is that she loved you most when she began to leave, because she held on until she couldn't hold both the relationship and her sanity at the same time. She chose herself because she finally realized no one else was going to. And that is not a sign of selfishness, it's a sign of awakening. You thought you lost her in a moment, but you lost her over months of not showing up where it mattered. And now she walks away not because she stopped loving you, but because she started loving herself more. She's not heartless. She's just done bleeding for a connection that refused to stop cutting. She's not punishing you. She's just choosing peace over performance. She needed you to feel her absence the way she felt your silence. She needed you to question your role in her retreat, not blame hers. She needed you to understand that emotional withdrawal is a symptom, not a crime. You are not entitled to her closeness if you've ignored her cries. You are not owed her vulnerability if you've weaponized her wounds. You are not the victim of her withdrawal if you've been the architect of her isolation. She doesn't want perfection. She wants presence. She doesn't need a savior. She needs a sanctuary. She doesn't require you to be flawless. She requires you to be emotionally fluent. She's not complicated. She's just tired of simplifying herself to be understood. And if you meet her detachment with ego instead of empathy, you'll confirm every reason she left. You'll call her distant, not realizing you were the one who stopped moving toward her long ago. You'll blame her withdrawal, not realizing she stayed long after she felt alone. You'll romanticize the beginning, but refuse to acknowledge the neglect in the middle. And you'll think she was cold when in reality she was burning out. But make no mistake, she loved you. She just needed you to love her in return. Not just loudly, but deeply, wisely, patiently, and consistently. And when that didn't happen, she left. Not because she stopped loving you, but because you stopped seeing her. So when she pulls away, even when she loves you deeply, it is not the death of love, but the cry of a soul no longer willing to disappear in someone else's story. It is not abandonment. It is a demand for balance. You must stop confusing her distance with disloyalty and start recognizing it as an alarm bell ringing in the unconscious chambers of your own inadequacy. She is not pulling away from you, she is pulling toward herself. And that is the most honest act a woman can commit when the relationship becomes a slow erosion of her spirit. She retreats not because she's fragile, but because she's been strong for too long in a space that made her weakness feel like a threat. You do not win her back by pleading for her presence. You earn her back by rebuilding your own. She does not need more of your promises. She needs the man who stands behind them. If you want her to stay, you must become a space where she can return, not to shrink, but to expand. And if you are not willing to face yourself, to excavate the fears and insecurities you've buried under charm and neediness, then you will watch her disappear into the very freedom she begged you to give her while she was still by your side. Because a woman who pulls away while loving you is not lost. She is leading back to truth, back to respect, back to a kind of love that doesn't demand sacrifice of identity, but celebrates the collision of two whole, sovereign, living souls. So ask yourself not how to stop her from pulling away. Ask yourself what kind of man she would never have to